The worst day of Aisha's life did not start with a breakup. It started with a train screaming into Seoul station while she stood there 9 months pregnant, dizzy, and one step away from collapsing. She survived the fall, but she did not survive who she crashed into. It was Min Jae, the Korean Mafia boss she ran from 8 months ago. And the first thing he saw was her baby bump. The first thing he said was the accusation she feared most. So why did she lie to his face and tell him the baby was not his, even though it might destroy them both? The next scene flashes to her life in hiding, working a cafe shift with shaking hands, pushing through pain, refusing to beg for help, until her body finally gives out in public, and she wakes up under bright clinic lights with a warning that she and the baby might not make it if she keeps going. She has one number she swore she would never call. When she calls it, Min Jae answers instantly and shows up like a storm wearing a calm face, and he takes control of everything. Then the story turns darker inside his penthouse by the Han River, where safety is a price and someone is watching them. Aisha hears his cousin Hannah speaking like she has a claim on him, planting doubts, stirring jealousy, pushing Aisha toward the same escape route as before. At the same time, Min Jae keeps breaking his own rules for Aisha, standing between her and threats, giving her choices, holding back the side of him that never loses. And when their lips meet by mistake, Aisha realizes the real danger is not his world. It is what her heart still wants. And just when she thinks she can breathe again, a breach attempt forces Min Jae to reveal how far he will go to protect her. The baby comes early, and Aisha must decide whether love can survive fear, lies, and a jealous relative who will not stop until they destroy each other. The question is simple, but the answer could ruin everything. Was Min Jae ever trying to cage her, or was someone else writing the story while she ran? If you want to find out what Aisha discovers about the lie that started it all, and the moment Min Jae finally chooses love over power, subscribe now, because the next part is where the truth hits and nobody walks away the same. Welcome to Afro-Korean Drama TV. Please like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more stories from us. Rain pressed against the glass roofs of Seoul Station, turning the evening into a blur of lights and rushing bodies. Aisha stood near the platform edge, one hand gripping a pillar, the other resting instinctively over her stomach. She was heavily pregnant, exhausted, and running on fumes she no longer had. The train thundered closer, wind whipping her coat around her legs, and for one terrifying second her vision narrowed until the world tilted. She stepped back just in time and collided with a solid chest. The scent hit her first. Clean, expensive, unmistakably familiar. Her breath caught before her mind could catch up. Slowly, she looked up. Min Jae, the man she married, the man she fled from 8 months ago without a word. His face went rigid, eyes darkening as recognition settled in. The noise of the station faded as if the city itself had paused to watch them. He took in her swollen belly in a single glance, his jaw tightening, pain flashing so quickly she almost missed it. "So it is true," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but it was the kind of calm that came before storms. "You disappeared with another man's child." Aisha swallowed. Her fingers trembled as she forced them to curl into fists. "It is not yours." The lie tasted bitter, but she held on to it. If she cracked now, she would shatter completely. Going back to Min Jae meant stepping into a world where power ruled and freedom came with conditions she was no longer sure she could survive. Min Jae stared at her as if she had struck him. "You vanish," he said slowly, "and this is what you tell me when we meet like strangers?" "I did not ask to meet you," she replied, her voice tight. "Please move." People brushed past them, unaware that two lives were colliding in the middle of their routine commute. Min Jae did not move. His presence was overwhelming, tall and controlled, the same man who commanded fear and loyalty in equal measure. The same man whose world she had run from when she realized she was pregnant. "You are not well," he said, eyes narrowing. "You can barely stand." "I am fine." She was not. Her head throbbed, her feet ached, and fear wrapped around her chest like a vice. But weakness was dangerous around Min Jae. It always had been. A whistle blew. The train doors opened. Aisha slipped past him before he could say more and disappeared into the crowd. That night, she slept on a borrowed couch in a tiny apartment in Itaewon, staring at the ceiling while rain tapped against the window. Her body ached from another long shift at the cafe. Standing all day, smiling for customers who did not see how close she was to breaking, pretending the headaches were nothing. She replayed Minji's face over and over in her mind, the hurt she had caused him burning hotter than guilt. She had promised herself she would never need him again. The next morning came too quickly. Aisha tied her apron with shaking hands and forced herself through another shift. The cafe smelled of roasted beans and sugar, comforting and cruel at the same time. Her manager watched her with concern as she moved slower than usual, one hand often pressing into her lower back. "You should rest," her manager said softly. "You are too far along for this." "I need the hours," Aisha replied. Rent was overdue. The landlord's messages sat unread on her phone, each one tightening the knot in her stomach. By afternoon, the dizziness returned. The room swayed as she reached for a cup, her vision dimming. She leaned against the counter, breathing through it, refusing to let anyone see how scared she was. She lasted 2 more days before her body forced the issue. It happened on a quiet morning. The cafe was nearly empty when a sharp pain shot through her head, followed by a wave of nausea so strong she dropped to her knees. Someone shouted her name. The world went white, then dark. When she woke, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A clinic room. A nurse adjusting a monitor. Fear surged through her, raw and immediate. "You need to rest," the nurse said. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high." Aisha nodded numbly. She reached for her phone, scrolling through contacts she never used. Her finger hovered over Minji's name. She closed her eyes, fighting tears. There was no one else. She pressed call. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" he said. No greeting, no anger, only urgency. The next hours blurred together. A black car waiting outside. Minji's presence beside her, silent but unyielding. Doctors speaking in careful tones about complications and risk. She felt small, frightened, and painfully aware of how easily he took control of the situation. "You will stay somewhere safe," Minji said once they were alone. "Doctors. Nurses. Proper care." "I am not your possession," Aisha snapped, though her voice lacked strength. "I know," he replied. "This is not about ownership. It is about keeping you alive." She wanted to argue. Instead, exhaustion won. She nodded. Minji's penthouse overlooked the Han River, cold and immaculate. It felt like stepping back into a life she had escaped. He kept his distance, arranging care with ruthless efficiency, but his eyes followed her everywhere. Protective, watchful, possessive in ways that made her pulse race and her chest ache. Days passed. Her health stabilized under strict supervision. Nights were the hardest. The silence between them hummed with unspoken words. Sometimes they brushed past each other in the hallway, skin barely touching, sparks igniting where they should not. Once, late at night, she reached for a glass of water at the same moment he did. Their hands collided. The contact lingered a second too long. She looked up, breath catching. He leaned closer without thinking. Their lips met by accident, soft and brief, but enough to send heat spiraling through her. Aisha pulled back, heart racing. "This is a mistake," she whispered. Minji did not deny it. He stepped away, jaw tight, eyes burning with restraint. The next day brought trouble. Aisha overheard raised voices in Minji's office. His cousin Hannah stood across from him, smiling too sweetly, her words sharp with implication. The same cousin who had always watched Aisha too closely, whose presence had made her uneasy even before everything fell apart. Old fears stirred. That night, Aisha lay awake, memories twisting with doubt. Had she been wrong to run? Had she been right? Was Minji protecting her, or caging her again? If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure you like and subscribe, because what Aisha discovers next will change everything she thought she knew about love, betrayal, and the man she ran from. Outside, Seoul glittered with danger and promise. Inside the penthouse, two hearts circled each other, pulled together by fate, fear, and a truth neither was ready to face yet. Morning came with pale winter light and the soft beep of a monitor in Aisha's guest room. She woke to the sound before she remembered where she was. The penthouse smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and expensive candles, like a place that never allowed chaos to settle.
Her throat was dry.
Her head felt heavy, but the stabbing pain had eased. A nurse stepped in quietly, checked her blood pressure, and smiled with professional calm. Better today. Still need rest. No stress. Aisha gave a small nod, then stared at the ceiling after the nurse left. No stress. That sounded like a joke. She was living inside the den of a man whose name made grown men lower their voices. She sat up slowly and pressed a hand over her belly. "We are okay," she whispered to the baby, as if the words could become protection. In the kitchen, she found Min-jae at the counter, sleeves rolled up, tying a knot in a simple black apron that looked strangely normal on him. He was cutting fruit with slow precision, as if knives were not a language he spoke fluently in darker ways. He did not look up at first. "You should have stayed in bed." "I needed water." He finally met her eyes. His gaze dropped briefly to her belly, then lifted again, guarded. "Sit. I can stand." "You can, but you should not." His voice stayed controlled.
It was not a command this time.
It was a warning wrapped in restraint. Aisha walked to the stool anyway, refusing to let her knees shake. He placed a glass of water beside her and slid a plate of sliced pears forward like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. "You do not have to act like my caretaker," she said. His jaw flexed once. "I am not acting." The silence thickened, filled with everything they were not saying. Aisha's mind kept slipping back to the kiss. It had been brief, accidental, and still her lips had remembered it too well. That memory burned under her skin like a secret. Min-jae turned away to rinse the knife. "The nurse will be here daily. The doctor will come later." "I do not want a parade of strangers," she muttered. "You need them. You do not get to decide what I need." He looked at her then, and something dark and wounded flickered in his eyes. "When you were gone, I decided I needed to breathe. I did not get that either." Aisha's chest tightened. She swallowed and stared at the glass. "You should have let me go." "I did," he said quietly. "I just did not know why you ran." Aisha felt the ground shift under that sentence. It sounded almost like pleading, and that scared her more than anger. Later that afternoon, Dr. Kong arrived with a calm expression and firm hands. He checked Aisha's vitals, asked questions, and spoke to her like she was a person, not a problem to manage. He explained the condition clearly. He emphasized rest, medication, and avoiding emotional spikes. When Dr. Kong left, Aisha walked toward the balcony doors to breathe. She stopped when she saw Min-jae standing outside, phone to his ear, speaking in Korean in a low voice. She understood enough to catch fragments. Names. Locations. A warning about someone watching the building. His tone sharpened, not loud, but lethal. Aisha's pulse jumped. She backed away without making a sound. Inside, she found herself pacing, which made the nurse scold her gently. Aisha sat again, but her mind would not rest. Minji's world was not a clean river view and quiet luxury. It was danger disguised as order. When Min-jae came back in, she forced her voice steady. "Is something going on?"
He paused.
"Nothing you need to worry about." "That is not an answer." His eyes held hers, measuring. "Someone is curious about you. That is all." "Curious," Aisha repeated, disbelief creeping in. "You say that like it is harmless." "It is not harmless," he admitted. "But it is handled." Aisha's stomach flipped with fear and something else she hated naming. Relief. Because handled meant he was protecting her, whether she wanted it or not. The next day, Min-jae insisted she take a short walk indoors, just a slow loop through the penthouse with the nurse hovering like a shadow. Aisha hated feeling fragile, hated needing help to do what used to be effortless. She held her chin up and walked anyway. She passed Minji's office and heard voices again. She stopped, heart thudding.
Hannah.
Aisha knew that voice anywhere. Smooth, playful, with a sharp edge like perfume hiding poison. I only came to check on your wife, Hannah said brightly. It is not every day a woman disappears and returns with a baby bump. Aisha froze. Minji's reply was colder than the winter outside. Watch your mouth. Hannah laughed softly, still protective. It suits you. I always said you loved too intensely. Aisha's fingers curled around the wall. She wanted to step in. She wanted to run. She did neither. Minjae spoke again, controlled. Dangerous. If you have nothing useful, leave. Hannah's voice softened in a way that made Aisha's skin crawl. I am useful, Minjae. I always have been. If she becomes a problem, you know I can help. Aisha felt bow rise. She turned away before they could open the door and see her listening. Her chest burned, and she did not know if it was jealousy, fear, or anger. That night, Minjae knocked once and entered her room. He did not come close. He stayed near the door like he was forcing himself to respect the boundary. Hannah visited, he said. I heard. Aisha replied, then regretted it instantly. Minji's eyes narrowed. You were listening. I was walking, she snapped. It is hard not to hear when people talk about my life, like I am not even in the building. He took a slow breath. She is not allowed here without my permission. Yet she was here. Because she thinks she still has rights in my world, he said. She is wrong. Aisha stared at him, searching his face for something she could trust. Why does she speak like she owns you? Minji's expression hardened. She speaks because people let her. That ends now. Aisha's voice turned quieter, more dangerous in its honesty. Did you let her? Minjae stepped forward one pace, then stopped again, as if he was wrestling himself. No. Aisha wanted to believe him. She wanted to hate that she wanted to believe him. The following morning, Minjae took her to a private clinic for another checkup, insisting on a discreet back entrance. Aisha wore a thick coat and a scarf that hid most of her face. The driver opened doors before she could touch them. Bodyguards moved like silent furniture. She hated all of it. She also felt strangely safe. At the clinic, a woman in the waiting room stared too long. Aisha felt it like a spotlight. The woman's phone lifted slightly, angled as if taking a photo. Minjae noticed at the same time. He stepped between Aisha and the woman with smooth speed, blocking the view. His gaze locked on the woman. Delete it. The woman blinked, pretending innocence. What? Surprised her by bringing her to the Penthouse's indoor garden lounge. It was a quiet space with tall plants, warm lighting, and the sound of water trickling. It felt like an oasis inside a fortress. Aisha sank into a chair and closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, Minjae was holding a small box. He placed it on the table and slid it toward her. What is that? She asked. Open it. Aisha hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside was a simple phone, new, with one number saved. Mine, Minjae said. Private. No one else will see what you call or who you text. You wanted control. Take it. Aisha stared at the phone, stunned. Why? Because I cannot undo what I did, he said. But I can stop doing it. She swallowed hard. It felt like a gift and a trap at the same time. Freedom offered by a man known for taking it. I do not know if I can trust this, she whispered. Minji's gaze held hers. Then do not. Not yet. Just keep it. Aisha nodded slowly, fingers tightening around the phone. It was small, but it felt like a crack in the wall between them. The next day began quietly until the penthouse security alarms went off in a muted chime. It was not loud, but it changed the air instantly. The staff moved with practiced speed, and Minjae was on his feet before Aisha could ask anything. He grabbed a jacket, then looked at her with sharp focus. Stay in your room. Aisha stood, panic rising. What is happening? Nothing, he said again, but his eyes said everything. Go. Aisha wanted to argue, but the nurse guided her firmly toward the hallway. Her mind raced. Someone curious, he had said. Someone watching. In her room, She listened to muffled footsteps, low voices, then silence. Minutes passed. Then her door opened. Min-jae stepped in, eyes dark, jaw clenched. There was a faint bruise on his knuckles. Aisha's breath caught. What did you do? He closed the door behind him. A man tried to get past security. He will not try again. Her heart pounded. You hurt him. Minji's gaze did not waver. He came for you. Aisha's knees threatened to give out. She gripped the edge of the bed. Why would anyone come for me? Min-jae moved closer, slow, controlled, as if he was approaching something fragile. Because you are connected to me, whether you like it or not. Aisha's voice shook. This is exactly why I ran. Minji's expression flickered with pain. You ran into the street with no protection. You ran into danger without even seeing it. Aisha felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them back. I ran because I could not breathe. Min-jae stood close now, but he did not touch her. His restraint felt like a choice, and that choice made her stomach twist. I will not cage you, he said, voice low. But I will not let anyone touch you either. Aisha's breath hitched. You cannot promise both. I can, he said, and the conviction in his eyes frightened her because it sounded like he believed it completely. That night, Aisha could not sleep. She kept replaying the image of his bruised knuckles. The idea of him fighting for her made warmth pool in her chest, then guilt slammed into it. She walked to the kitchen for water and found Min-jae there again, sitting alone, staring at nothing. The city lights reflected in the glass behind him. He looked up as she entered. His expression softened slightly. You should be resting. I was thirsty, she said, then hesitated. Your hand. He glanced at his knuckles like they belonged to someone else. It is nothing. Aisha walked closer, surprised at herself. Let me see. Minji's eyes sharpened. Do not. Aisha stopped, heart racing. Why? His voice turned rough. Because if you touch me, I will forget what I am trying to be. Aisha's face warmed. She swallowed. And what are you trying to be? Min-jae stood, closing the distance by one step. A man you can stay with without fear. Aisha's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, like the station platform again, like the accidental kiss, like a line that kept moving closer. She reached for his hand before she could stop herself. His fingers were warm, hard, and slightly swollen. Aisha's thumb brushed the bruise gently. Minji's breath changed. He stared at her like she was the only thing in the room. You should not do that, he said. I wanted to, she whispered. The truth left her lips before she could trap it again. The confession made her pulse spike. Min-jae lifted her hand slowly, brought it to his mouth, and pressed a careful kiss to her knuckles. It was not dramatic. It was not rushed. It was intimate in a way that made Aisha's throat tighten. She pulled her hand back, startled by how much that small gesture affected her. This is not smart. Minji's gaze stayed on her mouth. No. Aisha tried to step away, but her foot caught on the edge of a mat. She stumbled forward, and Min-jae reacted instantly, catching her by the waist. Her body pressed against his for 1 second. Her breath left her. His hand was firm but careful, protective even in the way he held her. Their faces were close. Aisha's mind screamed to move away. Her heart did not listen. Their lips met again, not accidental this time, but not planned either. It was a collision of fear and longing, a brief kiss that turned into another before she could remember why she ran. Then Aisha jerked back, eyes wide, hand flying to her mouth like she could erase it. I should not, she whispered, voice shaking. I cannot. Minji's eyes were dark, his breathing controlled by force. You kissed me. It was a mistake, she said, but her voice did not sound convinced. Min-jae took 1 step back, giving her space the way she had demanded for months. Then call it that, he said. But do not lie to yourself. I saw your hands shaking before my mouth even touched you. Aisha's cheeks burned. She hated that he noticed everything. She hated that he was right. She fled to her room and closed the door, leaning against it as her heart hammered. She pressed her fingers to her lips, remembering the warmth, remembering how safe she felt in his arms for one dangerous second. She whispered into the dark, "What am I doing?" The following day, Min-jae kept his distance, almost too much. He spoke only when necessary. He did not step into her space. He did not look at her mouth. His restraint felt like punishment, even though she knew it was respect. Aisha tried to focus on resting, but her mind spiraled. She remembered his voice at the station, cold with hurt. She remembered his tenderness with the fruit. She remembered his bruised knuckles, the warning in his eyes, the promise he made like an oath. That afternoon, she heard the front door open and voices. Hannah, again, laughing like she belonged. Aisha stiffened, anger sparking. She stepped out of her room and walked toward the living area, belly heavy, heart pounding. Hannah stood near the sofa, dressed in a sleek coat, eyes gleaming. She looked Aisha up and down with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Oh," Hannah said. "You are walking. Good. I was worried you were becoming too comfortable here." Aisha's hands curled. "Why are you here?" Hannah tilted her head. "Because Min-jae is my family. And you," she glanced at Aisha's stomach, "are complicated." Aisha's voice turned sharp. "I am his wife." Hannah laughed softly. "Are you? You vanished. You came back with secrets. Men like Min-jae do not forgive easily." Minji's voice cut in like ice. "Enough." He appeared from the hallway, expression unreadable. He moved to stand beside Aisha, close enough that she could feel his warmth, but not touching. It felt deliberate. A shield without a chain. Hannah's smile widened. "You always choose the broken things," she said to Min-jae. "It is almost sweet." Minji's eyes hardened. "Leave." Hannah lifted her hands. "I will. But I came with information." Her gaze slid to Aisha again. About where she went while she was gone. Aisha's stomach dropped. Min-jae did not look away from Hannah. "Speak." Hannah's eyes glittered. "You might not like it, but I thought you deserved the truth." Aisha's pulse roared in her ears. She could feel her old fear rising, the fear that had driven her to run. She also felt something new. Determination. She was tired of being spoken about like a rumor. She took a slow breath. "Say what you have to say." Hannah's lips parted, ready to strike. And Minji's hand finally touched Aisha's, just for a second. A quiet signal. "I am here." Aisha's heart clenched at the contact, and she realized with a sick twist that she wanted his hand there. She wanted it even if it meant stepping back into his world. Hannah leaned forward, voice silky. 8 months ago, you did not leave because you were scared. You left because someone told you Min-jae was planning to control you permanently. Aisha's chest tightened. That was the lie. The one that had shattered everything. Hannah continued, eyes locked on Aisha. "And, do you know who told you that?" Aisha's breath caught. Hannah smiled. "Someone who loves him too much to share." Minji's gaze snapped to Hannah, fury tightening every line of his face. "Hannah," he said, voice low warning. Hannah only smiled wider, like she had finally lit a match in a room full of gasoline. "Oops," she murmured. "Did I say that out loud?" Aisha stood frozen between them, heart pounding, because she could see it now. The trap. The manipulation. The way Hannah was trying to make them destroy each other again. Min-jae turned slightly toward Aisha, eyes searching her face. "Look at me," he said softly. Aisha's eyes lifted to his, and she saw something that made her throat tighten. Fear. Not of danger outside, but of losing her again. And somewhere deep inside her, a part of her that had been starving whispered that she did not want to run this time. Not yet. Not without the full truth. Aisha held Minji's gaze, forcing herself not to look away. The room felt too small, the air thick with tension and unfinished truths. Hannah's presence lingered like a bad scent, but Minji's hand stayed steady near Aisha's, not gripping, not claiming, just there. "Say everything," Aisha said quietly. "Not pieces. Not hints. Everything." Hannah laughed under her breath. "You always were brave when cornered." Min-jae turned on Hannah fully now. You came to provoke. You will not twist this again. Hannah shrugged, unfazed. I came because secrets rot when they stay buried. 8 months ago, you overheard a call. You thought Min-jae was discussing how to manage you, restrict you, make sure you never left. You were already afraid. I only clarified what you thought you heard. Aisha's chest tightened. The memory rushed back. The hallway. The door slightly open. Minji's voice on the phone. Words about safety, control, long-term arrangements. Her panic. Her certainty. You said he was planning my life without me, Aisha whispered. You said I would never leave that penthouse again. Hannah tilted her head. And you believed me. Minji's voice dropped, dangerous and contained. Because you made sure she would. Hannah's smile faltered for the first time. I protected you, she snapped. You were changing. She was changing you. Min-jae stepped closer to Hannah, his presence filling the space. Leave. Now. Hannah scoffed but took a step back. This is not over. Truth has a way of demanding payment. She walked out, heels sharp against marble, the door closing behind her with a final echo. Silence fell. Aisha felt like she was standing in the ruins of a memory. Her legs trembled, and Min-jae noticed instantly. He guided her to the sofa, careful, respectful, every movement restrained by effort. That call, Min-jae said, sitting across from her. It was about my mother. Her condition was worsening. She needed supervision. Structure. I was afraid she would hurt herself. Aisha pressed a hand to her mouth. Tears burned her eyes. I thought you were talking about me. I know, he said softly. And I should have realized you were scared. I should have spoken instead of assuming you would stay. Aisha laughed weakly. We were both wrong. Min-jae leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But Hannah was not mistaken. She was deliberate. The weight of it settled between them. The running, the loneliness, the fear, all built on a lie sharpened by someone who wanted him for herself. That night, sleep came in fragments. Aisha dreamed of doors closing and opening, of trains slowing instead of crashing, of hands reaching for her and stopping just short. The next morning, Min-jae was gone early. The nurse said he had urgent business. Aisha wandered the penthouse slowly, feeling like she was walking through a place that no longer felt like a cage, but not yet like home. She stopped at Minji's office door, hesitated, then knocked lightly. No answer. She opened it a crack. The room was darker than the rest of the penthouse, walls lined with books and quiet power. On the desk lay papers she did not touch. Her gaze drifted to a framed photo she had never noticed before. It was of them. Early days. Smiling. Her head resting against his shoulder, both of them unaware of how fragile happiness could be. Her chest ached. Later that afternoon, Min-jae returned with tension clinging to him like smoke. He removed his jacket, movements sharp, controlled. Aisha watched him from the sofa. Hannah will not be a problem again, he said. She hesitated. What does that mean? It means boundaries were enforced. Aisha studied his face. Did you hurt her? Minji's jaw tightened. No. I ended her access to my world. That answer both relieved and unsettled her. She nodded slowly. Good. The days that followed settled into a fragile rhythm. Medical checks. Short walks. Quiet meals. Long silences that felt less hostile than before. Min-jae began breaking his own rules in small ways. He canceled meetings to sit with Aisha during checkups. He slept on the couch instead of his bedroom, claiming it was closer in case she needed help. He allowed her to choose what she ate, where she sat, when she rested. Each choice chipped away at the fear she carried. One evening, as rain streaked down the windows again, Aisha stood in the kitchen making tea. Min-jae entered behind her, close enough that she felt his warmth but not close enough to touch. You should not stand this long, he said. I wanted to do something normal, she replied. He nodded. I forgot what normal looked like. She smiled faintly at that. When she turned with the cup, her foot slipped slightly on the polished floor. Min-jae caught her again, without thinking. This time, she did not pull away immediately. Her hands rested against his chest. She felt his heartbeat, steady and strong. "I keep telling myself this is a bad idea," she whispered. Min-jae looked down at her, eyes dark and honest. "So do I."
"And yet," she said.
"And yet," he agreed. Their lips brushed, hesitant questioning. This time the kiss was slower, careful, filled with restraint. When they parted, Aisha's breath shook. She stepped back first. "I am scared of doing the wrong thing." Minji's voice was low.
"So am I."
"But I am more scared of never doing the right one." That night, Aisha lay awake, staring at the ceiling, heart torn between fear and longing. She thought of the life she had built alone, fragile but hers. She thought of the danger surrounding Min-jae, the shadows he lived in. She thought of the way he had looked at her on the station platform, like she was both his greatest loss and his only hope. The following day brought another twist. Dr. Kong delivered news neither of them wanted to hear. "The baby may come earlier than expected," he said calmly. "We need to prepare." Aisha's hands shook. Minji's fingers closed around hers without asking. That night, as they sat together in the quiet, Aisha finally spoke the thought she had been avoiding. "If I stay," she said softly, "everything changes." Min-jae did not pretend otherwise. "If you leave," he replied, "everything stays broken." She looked at him, really looked, and saw not just the Mafia boss, not just the man who frightened her once, but the man who had learned to kneel beside her bed in the dark, who waited for permission to touch, who chose restraint when power would have been easier. Her heart made its choice before her mind caught up. Outside, Seoul moved on, unaware that two lives were balancing on the edge of love and fear. And somewhere in the city, consequences were already shifting, drawn by the fact that Aisha had not run this time. The tension in the penthouse thickened as the days crept closer to the unknown. Aisha could feel it in her body before anyone said the words out loud. The baby pressed lower. Her back ached constantly. Sleep came in short, restless stretches. Min-jae noticed everything. He noticed when she winced getting out of bed. He noticed when she went quiet for too long. He noticed when her hands trembled while holding her cup. And each time, he adjusted his world without announcing it. Meetings moved. Phones were silenced. Men who once had direct access to him were told to wait. This was not the Min-jae his enemies knew. One evening, as the city lights flickered on, Aisha sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket. The river below reflected gold and white, calm and deceptive. Min-jae stood a few steps away, pretending to check his phone while watching her from the corner of his eye. "You are hovering," she said without looking at him. He paused. "I am standing." She glanced at him, lips twitching. "You are hovering." He accepted that with a small nod and sat across from her instead. Silence settled, but it was not heavy. It was cautious, almost tender. "Why Seoul?" Aisha asked suddenly. Min-jae looked up.
"What?"
"You could have built your life anywhere. Why here?" He considered the question. "Because power hides better in crowds. And because I grew up believing this city owed me something." "And now," she said quietly. "And now I am not sure what I owe it," he replied. Her chest tightened at that. She saw the shift in him, subtle but real. The way he no longer spoke only in certainty, but in questions. Later that night, the quiet shattered. Aisha woke to shouting. Not loud, but urgent. The kind of sound that made fear snap awake instantly. She sat up, heart racing, and reached for her robe. Before she could open the door, Min-jae was there. "Do not come out," he said firmly. "What is happening?" she demanded. "Someone tried to breach the building's lower level," he said. "It is handled." Her fear flared into anger. Handled how? Min-jae met her eyes. Without violence. She searched his face, looking for cracks. "Promise me, you will not solve every problem with blood." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I promise." That promise cost him something. She could see it. The next day, Min-jae surprised her again. He took her out, not to a clinic, not to a secured building, but to a small traditional restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. No bodyguards inside. No tension in the air. Just warm soup and soft music. You brought me here before, Aisha murmured, recognition hitting her. Yes, he said. You said the food made you feel human again. Her throat tightened. She had forgotten that moment. Or maybe she had buried it. As they ate, a man at another table stared too long. Aisha noticed Min-jae stiffen instantly. His hand tightened around his spoon. His gaze sharpened. She reached across the table without thinking and rested her fingers over his wrist. It is okay, she whispered. Min-jae froze. Slowly, deliberately, he relaxed. He looked at her like she had just disarmed something dangerous inside him. That night, as they returned home, rain began to fall again. They moved quickly through the parking area. Aisha slipped on the wet pavement. Min-jae caught her hard this time, pulling her against him with no restraint left. His arms locked around her like instinct had finally won. For a moment, neither moved. Aisha could feel his heartbeat racing against her cheek. She could feel the way his body reacted to holding her, tension and control battling desire. I am not made for halfway, he said quietly. Her voice trembled. Neither am I. Their kiss this time was not accidental. It was not rushed either. It was slow, searching, filled with everything they were afraid to say. When they broke apart, Aisha pressed her forehead against his chest. This scares me, she admitted. It should, he replied honestly. But I will not let it hurt you. The next morning, everything changed. The pain came sharp and sudden. Aisha cried out, gripping the bed as panic surged. The nurse rushed in. Calls were made. Min-jae appeared within seconds, already dressed, eyes blazing with fear he did not hide. At the hospital, lights blurred past. Voices overlapped. Aisha felt herself slipping between moments. Min-jae never let go of her hand. When the baby arrived earlier than planned, the room filled with sound.
A cry. Small, fierce, alive.
Aisha sobbed with relief. Min-jae stood frozen for 1 second, then his knees buckled as emotion finally broke through his control. He laughed softly, breath shaking, eyes wet. She is here, he whispered. In the days that followed, Min-jae changed in ways no one expected. He learned how to hold the baby with careful reverence. He sang softly in Korean late at night, low enough that only the two of them could hear. He canceled everything that did not involve Aisha or their child. Aisha watched him fall into fatherhood with a mixture of awe and fear. Loving him felt easier now. Trusting him felt harder. Hannah tried one last time. A message arrived on Aisha's phone while Min-jae was out. A warning disguised as concern. A reminder of danger. A suggestion that leaving now would be safer. Aisha stared at the screen for a long time. When Min-jae returned, she handed him the phone without a word. He read it. His face darkened. She will not contact you again, he said. Aisha held his gaze. If you handle this the way you used to, I will leave. For good. The silence stretched. Min-jae nodded once. Then I will handle it differently. And he did. Hannah was cut off, exposed, removed without violence or spectacle. The power, she thought she had vanished overnight. Weeks passed. Counseling began. Hard conversations followed. Aisha spoke about fear. Min-jae spoke about control. Neither ran. One quiet evening, Min-jae placed a small object in Aisha's palm.
A key.
The worst day of Aisha's life did not start with a breakup. It started with a train screaming into Seoul station while she stood there 9 months pregnant, dizzy, and one step away from collapsing. She survived the fall, but she did not survive who she crashed into. It was Min-jae, the Korean Mafia boss she ran from 8 months ago. And the first thing he saw was her baby bump. The first thing he said was the accusation she feared most. So why did she lie to his face and tell him the baby was not his, even though it might destroy them both? The next scene flashes to her life in hiding, working a cafe shift with shaking hands, pushing through pain, refusing to beg for help, until her body finally gives out in public, and she wakes up under bright clinic lights with a warning that she and the baby might not make it if she keeps going. She has one number she swore she would never call. When she calls it, Min-jae answers instantly and shows up like a storm wearing a calm face, and he takes control of everything. Then the story turns darker inside his penthouse by the Han River, where safety is a price and someone is watching them. Aisha hears his cousin Hannah speaking like she has a claim on him, planting doubts, stirring jealousy, pushing Aisha toward the same escape route as before. At the same time, Min-jae keeps breaking his own rules for Aisha, standing between her and threats, giving her choices, holding back the side of him that never loses. And when their lips meet by mistake, Aisha realizes the real danger is not his world. It is what her heart still wants. And just when she thinks she can breathe again, a breach attempt forces Min-jae to reveal how far he will go to protect her. The baby comes early, and Aisha must decide whether love can survive fear, lies, and a jealous relative who will not stop until they destroy each other. The question is simple, but the answer could ruin everything. Was Min-jae ever trying to cage her, or was someone else writing the story while she ran? If you want to find out what Aisha discovers about the lie that started it all, and the moment Min-jae finally chooses love over power, subscribe now, because the next part is where the truth hits and nobody walks away the same. Welcome to Afro-Korean Drama TV. Please like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more stories from us.